It's that sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach, the realization that something in your relationship just isn't right. Maybe it's the constant bickering, the growing distance, or the nagging sense that you're both just going through the motions. Whatever the case may be, one thing is clear. This relationship isn't what it used to be, and the thought of continuing down this path fills you with dread. You've poured your heart and soul into making this work, but the cracks in the foundation have become too wide to ignore. Deep down, you know what you need to do, but the thought of calling it quits is paralyzing. After all, ending a relationship, especially one that was once so full of promise, is one of the most difficult and heartbreaking decisions a person can make. But here's the truth. Sometimes, no matter how much you want to save a relationship, the healthiest and most courageous choice is to let go. And the sooner you can recognize the signs that your partnership has run its course, the sooner you can begin the journey of healing and moving on. In this video, we'll explore the 10 telltale signs that your relationship is simply not worth saving, even if every fiber of your being wants to hold on. By the time you're done reading, you'll have the clarity and confidence to make the tough but necessary decision to walk away and reclaim your path to happiness. So, if you're ready to stop torturing yourself with the what-ifs and face the harsh reality head-on, buckle up. This is about to get real. Sign number 1. Constant, unresolved conflict. One of the clearest indicators that a relationship is beyond repair is the presence of constant, unresolved conflict. We're not talking about the occasional disagreement or heated discussion. Those are natural and even healthy in any partnership. No, the kind of conflict we're referring to here is the relentless, seemingly endless cycle of arguing, bickering, and outright hostility that leaves you both emotionally drained and utterly depleted. When a couple finds themselves caught in a perpetual loop of unresolved conflicts, it's a major red flag that the foundation of the relationship has become too damaged to simply patch over, explains relationship expert Dr. Samantha Rodman. It's a sign that the core issues driving the discord are deeply entrenched, and that you've likely exhausted all viable avenues for productive conflict resolution. The key is to pay attention to the patterns. Are the same issues and grievances resurfacing over and over again, with no real progress or compromise in sight? Do your attempts to communicate, compromise, or seek outside help, e.g., couples counseling, consistently fall flat? If so, it may be time to seriously consider whether this relationship is worth salvaging. Sign number 2. Lack of emotional intimacy. Another telltale sign that your relationship is not worth saving is a profound and persistent lack of emotional intimacy. We're not just talking about the physical or sexual aspects of your partnership here. We're referring to the deeper, more profound sense of emotional closeness, vulnerability, and psychological connection that should form the bedrock of a healthy, thriving relationship. When emotional intimacy starts to erode, it's a clear sign that the emotional needs of one or both partners are not being met, says relationship coach Michael Fiore. And without that foundation of trust, understanding, and mutual vulnerability, the relationship becomes increasingly fragile and unsustainable. Pay attention to whether you and your partner feel truly seen, heard, and understood by one another. Do you feel safe opening up about your deepest fears, hopes, and insecurities? Or have you both retreated into emotional fortresses, afraid to let your guards down and risk further heartbreak? If the emotional intimacy has flatlined, and you've exhausted all avenues for rekindling that profound sense of connection, it may be time to seriously consider whether this relationship is worth preserving. Sign number 3. Broken trust and betrayal. One of the most damaging blows a relationship can endure is a profound breach of trust, whether that manifests in the form of infidelity, deception, or a flagrant disregard for the emotional and physical boundaries that should define a healthy partnership. When trust has been irreparably broken, it can be exceedingly difficult, if not impossible, to rebuild the foundation of safety, vulnerability, and mutual respect that a relationship requires, explains Dr. Rodman. And without that bedrock of trust, the relationship is essentially left teetering on unstable ground. The key is to assess the nature and severity of the betrayal, as well as your and your partner's willingness and ability to genuinely work through the breach and restore the relationship to a place of wholeness. If the trust has been shattered beyond repair, and the wounds feel too deep to ever fully heal, it may be time to cut your losses and move on. Sign number 4. Lack of shared goals and vision. A healthy, thriving relationship is built on more than just mutual attraction and chemistry. It also requires a shared sense of purpose, a common vision for the future, and an alignment of core values and long-term goals. When couples find themselves fundamentally at odds over the big-picture questions, things like whether to have children, where to live, or how to spend and save money, it can create a rift that's incredibly difficult to bridge, says Fiore. And without that foundational alignment, the relationship is often doomed to be plagued by endless power struggles and irreconcilable differences. Pay attention to whether you and your partner are consistently on the same page when it comes to your hopes, dreams, and aspirations for the future. Do you feel that you're working together towards a common goal, or are you constantly at odds, each pulling the relationship in a different direction? If the disconnect feels too vast to overcome, and you simply can't envision a future where you're both equally invested and fulfilled, it may be time to seriously consider ending the relationship. Sign number 5. Toxic, abusive, or codependent dynamics. In some cases, the clearest indication that a relationship is not worth saving is the presence of toxic, abusive, or codependent dynamics that are actively harming the well-being of one or both partners. Whether it's emotional, psychological, or even physical abuse, or a profoundly unhealthy codependency where both individuals are trapped in a cycle of dysfunction, these kinds of relationships are almost always beyond repair, explains Dr. Rodman. The trauma and damage they inflict simply run too deep, and the risk of continued harm is too great to justify attempting to salvage the partnership. If you find yourself in a relationship where your sense of self-worth and personal boundaries are consistently violated, where you live in fear of your partner's reactions or outbursts, or where you're trapped in an endless loop of emotional or financial dependency, it's time to prioritize your own safety and well-being by walking away. These types of relationships are not worth saving, they're worth escaping, for your own mental, emotional, and physical health. Sign number 6. Fundamental incompatibility. Sometimes, the reason a relationship isn't worth saving has nothing to do with toxic behaviors or unresolved conflicts. Rather, it's simply a matter of fundamental incompatibility, a mismatch of core values, needs, and desires that no amount of compromise or effort can overcome. When two people find themselves irreconcilably at odds over the foundational elements of a relationship, things like whether to have children, how to handle finances, or how to define the boundaries of monogamy, it can create a chasm that's ultimately too vast to bridge, says Fiore. The key is to honestly assess whether you and your partner are truly aligned on the non-negotiable aspects of your partnership. Do you share a common vision for the future, or are you constantly at odds over the big-picture questions? Can you both feel fulfilled and satisfied within the confines of the relationship, or are you constantly forced to compromise your deepest needs and desires? If the incompatibility feels too deep-rooted to overcome, and you simply can't envision a future where you're both equally happy and fulfilled, it may be time to accept that this relationship has run its course. Sign number 7. Persistent disrespect and contempt. In a healthy, thriving relationship, partners should feel mutually respected, valued, and cherished. But when that sense of respect and esteem begins to erode, it can be a clear sign that the relationship is not worth saving. Disrespect and contempt, whether it manifests in the form of constant criticism, dismissive behavior, or outright verbal abuse, are some of the most corrosive forces in a relationship, explains Dr. Rodman. And when one or both partners consistently fail to treat each other with the dignity and regard that they deserve, it can be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to rebuild that foundation of mutual respect. Pay attention to whether you and your partner consistently speak to and treat each other with kindness, empathy, and basic human decency. Or do you find yourselves engaging in a steady stream of belittling, demeaning, or outright disrespectful exchanges that leave you feeling devalued and demoralized? If the persistent lack of respect has you questioning your own self-worth and sense of dignity, it may be time to seriously consider walking away, no matter how much you may want to save the relationship. Sign number 8. Persistent emotional or physical neglect. In any healthy relationship, both partners should feel cared for, supported, and nurtured, not just in the grand, romantic gestures, but in the consistent, day-to-day acts of emotional and physical attentiveness. But when that care and nurturing is consistently absent, it can be a clear sign that the relationship is not worth saving. Whether it manifests in the form of emotional abandonment, physical neglect, or a fundamental lack of attention and responsiveness to each other's needs. This type of persistent disregard can be incredibly damaging to the well-being and security of both partners, explains Fiore. Pay attention to whether you and your partner make each other a priority, or whether you consistently feel ignored, overlooked, and taken for granted. Do you feel that your emotional and physical needs are being met, or do you find yourself constantly craving more affection, quality time, and basic acts of care and consideration? If the neglect feels pervasive and unrelenting, and your attempts to address it have consistently fallen flat, it may be time to accept that this relationship is not worth saving. Sign number 9. Lack of personal growth and fulfillment. In a healthy, thriving relationship, both partners should feel empowered to grow, evolve, and become the best versions of themselves. But when one or both individuals finds themselves stagnating, unfulfilled, and unable to pursue their own personal goals and aspirations, it can be a clear sign that the relationship is not worth preserving. Relationships should be a source of support, inspiration, and mutual encouragement, not a cage that traps us and prevents us from reaching our full potential, says Dr. Rodman. And when we find ourselves consistently sacrificing our own dreams and personal growth in service of the relationship, it's a red flag that something is deeply, fundamentally wrong. Pay attention to whether you feel that you're able to freely and authentically express your true self within the confines of the relationship. Do you feel empowered to pursue your passions, explore new experiences, and continue evolving as an individual? Or do you find yourself constantly suppressing your own needs and desires in order to maintain the relationship? If the latter scenario rings true, and you feel that the relationship is actively stunting your personal growth and fulfillment, it may be time to seriously consider walking away. Sign number 10. Lack of motivation to fight for the relationship. Finally, one of the most telling signs that a relationship is not worth saving is a pervasive, gut-level sense that you simply don't have the energy, motivation, or willingness to keep fighting for it. When you find yourself consistently dreading interactions with your partner, or you realize that the thought of ending the relationship doesn't fill you with the same level of dread and heartbreak that it once did, it's a clear sign that your emotional investment in the relationship has dwindled to a critical point, explains Fiore. The key is to pay attention to your own visceral, emotional responses when you contemplate the future of the relationship. Do you feel a spark of hope and determination to work through the challenges, or do you find yourself resigned, apathetic, and emotionally checked out? If the latter rings true, and you simply can't muster the motivation to keep fighting for the relationship, it may be time to accept that it's not worth saving, and that the healthiest choice is to let go and begin the journey of moving on. Deciding to end a relationship, even one that's clearly past its expiration date, is never an easy or painless process. The emotional turmoil, the sense of failure, the fear of the unknown, it can all feel overwhelming and paralyzing. But here's the truth. Sometimes, the most courageous and self-affirming thing you can do is to walk away from a relationship that is no longer serving you. By recognizing and honoring the clear signs that your partnership has run its course, you're empowering yourself to reclaim your path to happiness and fulfillment, even if it means temporarily weathering the storm of heartbreak and loss. The key is to approach this decision with compassion, self-awareness, and a commitment to your own long-term well-being. Acknowledge the grief, the doubts, and the feelings of uncertainty, but don't let them trap you in a cycle of resignation and inaction. Instead, lean into the clarity and conviction that comes from recognizing the relationship is beyond repair. Remember, ending a relationship doesn't make you a failure. It makes you someone who is brave enough to prioritize their own needs and happiness, even in the face of deep-seated emotional attachments. And by doing so, you open the door to the possibility of finding a partnership that truly aligns with your core values, needs, and aspirations. So, if you find yourself staring down the barrel of one or more of the 10 signs outlined in this guide, don't hesitate. Summon your courage, trust your instincts, and make the difficult but necessary decision to walk away. Your future self will thank you. The road ahead may be paved with pain and uncertainty, but it also holds the promise of newfound freedom, growth, and the opportunity to cultivate the healthy, fulfilling relationship you deserve. All you have to do is take that first step. The future is yours, my friend. Are you ready to reclaim your path to happiness, even if it means letting go of a relationship that's no longer worth saving? Start taking action today, and watch as the clouds part and the sun begins to shine again.